I found a countdown timer hidden in my husband's closet. It ends tomorrow at midnight. My hands won't stop shaking because I know whatever happens when it reaches 0 will destroy everything I thought I knew about my life. My name is Rachel Morrison, and I'm a pediatric nurse in Portland. I've been married to David for 8 years, and until 3 days ago, I believed we were happy. Now I'm not sure I ever knew him at all. The discovery, I never meant to find it. That's what makes everything so much worse. If I hadn't decided to clean out David's closet that Thursday afternoon, I would still be living in blissful ignorance. I would still believe my husband loved me. I would still trust my sister. David had asked me weeks ago to donate his old winter jacket. He said he never wore it anymore, that it just took up space. I kept forgetting, kept putting it off. But that day, with David at work and the house quiet around me, I finally remembered. I opened his closet door and reached for the navy blue jacket hanging in the back corner. That's when I saw it. The device sat on the top shelf, partially hidden behind a stack of sweaters. At first, I thought it was a clock. But clocks don't glow that particular shade of red. Clocks don't make your stomach drop when you look at them. I pulled over the step stool and climbed up. My hands trembled as I reached for it. The moment my fingers touched the cold plastic, I knew something was terribly wrong. The red numbers glowed brighter in my hands. 72, 14, 09, then 72, 14, 08, then 72, 14, 07. It was counting down. I held it in my hands, trying to understand what I was seeing. The device was small, about the size of a deck of cards, with a digital display on the front. There were no buttons, no labels, nothing to explain what it was or why David had it hidden in his closet. Just those red numbers, ticking down second by second. My heart pounded as I realized it was counting down to something specific. 72 hours, 3 days. Tomorrow at midnight, this timer would reach 0. And then what? What happened when it reached 0? I stood on that step stool for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. My mind raced through possibilities. Was it a surprise? Our anniversary wasn't for another month. My birthday had passed. Maybe it was something for work. But David was an accountant. He dealt with numbers on spreadsheets, not mysterious countdown timers. The rational part of my brain tried to calm me down. There had to be a simple explanation. Maybe it was for a project. Maybe he was planning something nice. Maybe I was overreacting. But the other part of my brain, the part that noticed how distant David had been lately, the part that remembered how he'd started working late more often, the part that caught him smiling at his phone when he thought I wasn't looking. That part knew better. I put it back exactly where I found it and pretended I'd seen nothing. The phone call, I made it exactly 45 minutes before I broke down. I tried to act normal. I put the jacket in a donation bag. I started dinner. I folded laundry, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those red numbers counting down. 71, 28, 33, 71, 28, 32, 71, 28, 31. I called my sister Emma because she always knows what to do. Emma is 3 years older than me, and she's always been the strong one. When our parents died in a car accident 10 years ago, Emma handled everything. The funeral arrangements, the estate, the grief. She held me while I cried and told me everything would be okay. If anyone could help me make sense of this, it was Emma. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Hey, Rach, what's up?" "I need to talk to you about something." My voice came out smaller than I intended. "Something weird happened today." "Okay." I heard rustling on her end, like she was setting something down. "What kind of weird?" I took a deep breath. "I found something in David's closet. A timer. Like a countdown timer. It's counting down to tomorrow at midnight." Silence. "Emma?" Her voice went cold when she described the timer to her. "What does it look like?" The change in her tone made my skin prickle. "It's small, black, with red numbers. Why? Do you know what it is?" More silence. Then, "Rachel, listen to me very carefully. I need you to bring that timer to my house right now." "What? Emma, what's going on?" She told me to come to her house immediately and bring the device. "Don't ask questions. Just get in your car and come here. Can you do that?" I heard something strange in her tone. Not surprise, but recognition. Emma knew something about this timer. She knew something about what my husband was hiding in his closet. "Emma, you're scaring me. If you know something..." When I asked if she knew something, she hung up on me. I stood in my kitchen, staring at my phone, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. Emma had never hung up on me before, not in 32 years of being sisters. Not even when we'd fought as teenagers, not even during the worst days after our parents died. Something was very, very wrong. I grabbed my purse and my keys. I went back to David's closet and took the timer, wrapping it carefully in a scarf so I wouldn't have to touch it directly. The numbers glowed through the fabric. 71:03:45. Less than 71 hours until midnight tomorrow. I left a note for David on the kitchen counter. Went to Emma's, back later, love you. The words love you tasted like ashes in my mouth. Emma's confession. The drive to Emma's house normally took 20 minutes. I made it in 12. I ran 2 yellow lights and didn't care. The timer sat in my passenger seat, counting down through the scarf I'd wrapped it in. I could see the red glow even without looking directly at it. Emma lived in a townhouse on the east side of Portland. I'd helped her move in 3 years ago, after her divorce from Marcus. We'd painted her bedroom together, hung curtains, assembled furniture from IKEA while drinking wine, and laughing about the incomprehensible instructions. That was back when I thought I knew my sister. I drove to Emma's house with the timer hidden in my purse. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight, my knuckles turned white. Every terrible possibility ran through my mind. Was David in trouble? Was someone threatening him? Was this some kind of bomb? That last thought made me laugh, high and hysterical. A bomb in my husband's closet, as if my life had turned into an action movie. I parked in front of her townhouse and ran to the door. I didn't even have to knock. She opened the door with tears streaming down her face. Emma? I stepped inside, confusion mixing with fear. What's happening? Why are you crying? My sister, my strong, unshakable sister, crumpled against the doorframe. Mascara ran down her cheeks in black rivers. Her hands shook as she reached for me, then pulled back like she didn't have the right to touch me anymore. I'm so sorry, she whispered. Rachel, I'm so sorry. Sorry for what? I closed the door behind me. Emma, you're scaring me. What do you know about this timer? She walked into her living room like she was walking to her own execution. I followed, my heart in my throat. Emma sat down on her couch and buried her face in her hands. I never meant for it to go this far, she said through her fingers. I never meant to hurt you. Hurt me how? Emma, please. Just tell me what's going on. She looked up at me then, and the guilt in her eyes made my blood run cold. Emma told me she'd been sleeping with David for 2 years. The words didn't make sense at first. I heard them, but my brain couldn't process them. They were like words in a foreign language, familiar sounds that carried no meaning. What? David and I, she said, fresh tears spilling down her face. We've been having an affair for 2 years. Rachel, I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to find out like this. The room tilted. I sat down hard on the chair across from her, my legs suddenly unable to hold me. You and David, my husband. I know how terrible this is. 2 years, my voice came out as a whisper. 2 years of family dinners. 2 years of holidays. 2 years of Emma sitting across from me, smiling, asking about my marriage, pretending to be my sister while she was sleeping with my husband. The timer wasn't David's, it was hers, a gift from him. She pulled it out of her pocket. Another timer, identical to the one in my purse. The numbers matched exactly, 70:47:12. He gave it to me 3 days ago, Emma said. He said it was romantic, that we were counting down to our new life together. She said the countdown marked when they would finally be together. The plan they made. I sat in that chair, staring at my sister, and felt something inside me break. Not my heart. My heart had already shattered the moment she said she'd been sleeping with David. This was something deeper. This was the foundation of my entire world cracking apart. Why? It was all I could manage. One word, one question. Why would she do this to me? I don't have a good answer, Emma said. It just happened. We ran into each other at a coffee shop downtown 2 years ago. We started talking. Then we started meeting for lunch. Then, she trailed off, but I didn't need her to finish. And the timer? I pulled it out of my purse, unwrapped it, held it up. What does this mean? What happens tomorrow at midnight? Emma's face went even paler. She stood up, walked to her bedroom, and came back with her phone. Her hands shook as she unlocked it and pulled up her messages. Emma showed me text messages between her and David on her phone. I read them over her shoulder, and with each line I felt sicker. David. Just 3 more days, baby, then it's all over. Emma. Are you sure about this? There has to be another way. David. There's no other way. She won't give me a divorce. This is the only option. Emma. I'm scared, David. Don't be. I've planned everything perfectly. It'll look like an accident. No one will ever know. They'd been planning to stage my death to look like an accident. My vision blurred. I read the messages again, certain I was misunderstanding, but the words didn't change. My husband, the man I'd married 8 years ago, the man I'd promised to love forever, was planning to kill me. Keep reading, Emma whispered. I scrolled up. There were dozens of messages, hundreds, all discussing their plan in careful detail. David had researched everything. The type of accident that would be most believable, how to avoid suspicion, what to say to the police. They'd thought of everything. The timer counted down to when it would happen. Tomorrow night, less than 71 hours from now. David would kill me. Why? I asked again, but this time the question was bigger. Why did they want me dead? Why not just divorce me? Why go to such extremes? Emma scrolled to another message thread. This one was worse. David. The life insurance policy came through, $2 million. Emma. Are you sure she doesn't know, David? She signed the papers without even reading them, trusting little Rachel, always so naive. David had taken out a life insurance policy on me 6 months ago. I remembered that day. He'd brought the papers home and said it was something his company required, that all the senior accountants had to have life insurance. I'd signed without question, because I trusted him, because he was my husband, because I never imagined he would use it to justify my murder. My own sister had helped him plan every detail of my murder. I looked at Emma, and I didn't recognize her anymore. This woman sitting across from me, crying and apologizing, wasn't my sister. My sister wouldn't do this. My sister wouldn't betray me like this. How could you? The words came out raw, scraped from somewhere deep inside me. How could you help him plan to kill me? I didn't want to, Emma's voice broke. Rachel, you have to believe me. I never wanted this. I tried to talk him out of it. I told him we could wait, that you'd eventually agree to a divorce. But he said you'd take everything. He said we'd never be together if we didn't do this. So you agreed to help him murder me? My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Flat, cold, dead. No, I mean, I said yes, but I couldn't. I can't. That's why I told you to come here. That's why I'm showing you all of this. I can't let him hurt you, Rachel. You're my sister. I stood up. The timer in my hand showed 70, 39, 47. I'm not your sister. My sister died the day she decided sleeping with my husband was more important than loving me. Why she told me. Emma grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. Wait, please. Let me explain everything. I wanted to leave. I wanted to run out of that house and never see her again. But I needed to know more. I needed to understand the full scope of what they'd planned so I could figure out how to survive it. I asked Emma why she was confessing if they were so close to succeeding. She pulled me back to the couch. Because I love you. I know you don't believe that right now, but it's true. I've been sick over this for weeks. I haven't slept. I can barely eat. The thought of David actually going through with it. She covered her mouth, fighting back sobs. Then why did you agree to it in the first place? She broke down and said she couldn't go through with killing me. The words poured out of her in a rush, barely coherent through her tears. She told me how David had been so convincing, so persuasive. How he'd made her believe that I was standing in the way of their happiness. How he'd told her over and over that there was no other way. But this morning, when I woke up and looked at that timer, I realized what we were actually planning to do. Murder. We were planning to murder you. My baby sister, the only family I have left. She looked at me with red, swollen eyes. I couldn't do it. I can't. So I'm telling you everything. I'm helping you stop him. How noble of you, I said bitterly. You only decided not to kill me at the last possible moment. Emma admitted David had manipulated her, made her believe I was cruel to him. He told me things, Rachel, terrible things. He said you were emotionally abusive, that you controlled all the money, that you threatened him when he mentioned divorce. He made me believe you were this monster who was making his life miserable. I stared at her in disbelief. And you believed him? You've known me my entire life, Emma. You know I would never do those things. I know that now, but he was so convincing. He had evidence. Evidence? She showed me recordings David had made. All lies about me abusing him. Emma pulled up video files on her phone. In them, David sat in our bedroom, his face the picture of despair. He spoke to the camera about how I berated him constantly, how I made him feel worthless, how I threatened to ruin his career if he tried to leave me. None of it was true, not a single word. But watching those videos, I understood how Emma had been fooled. David was a good actor. He sounded genuinely hurt, genuinely afraid. If I didn't know myself, if I didn't know the truth of our marriage, I might have believed him too. He recorded these over the past year, Emma said. He'd show them to me whenever I started having doubts about the affair. He'd remind me that you were the real villain, that we were the victims. I realized David had poisoned my sister against me systematically. This wasn't a crime of passion. This wasn't a moment of weakness that spiraled out of control. David had planned this from the beginning. He'd seduced my sister specifically because she was my sister, because having her on his side would make his plan more believable, more justified. He'd spent 2 years turning Emma against me so she'd help him kill me. The cruelty of it took my breath away, the calculation, the patience. David had always been good with numbers, with planning, with thinking 10 steps ahead. I just never imagined he'd use those skills to plan my murder. Show me everything, I said, my voice hard. Every message, every recording, every piece of evidence. I want to know exactly what he planned to do to me. Emma nodded and handed me her phone. There's more, things I haven't told you yet. Things you need to know before tomorrow night. I took the phone and started reading. The timer in my lap continued its countdown. 70, 28, 03. I had less than 3 days to figure out how to stop my husband from killing me. And I had an idea, gathering evidence. We spent the next 4 hours going through everything. Emma made coffee and ordered food, but neither of us could eat. We sat at her kitchen table with her phone, my phone, and her laptop, documenting every piece of evidence we could find. I made Emma help me collect every piece of evidence against David. At first, she hesitated. What are you going to do with all this? I'm going to make sure he pays for what he tried to do to me. Now help me, or I'm going straight to the police right now and telling them you were part of it. That got her moving. Emma pulled up every text message, every email, every phone call log between her and David. We copied all the text messages, emails, and voice recordings to 3 different cloud accounts, just to be safe. If David had taught me anything, it was the value of planning ahead. There has to be more, I said, scrolling through the messages for the 3rd time. These show intent, but I need proof of actual planning, financial records, research on methods, something concrete. He keeps a lot on his home computer, Emma said quietly. In his office, he showed me once. He has a folder called Project R. Project R for Rachel. My husband had organized my murder like it was a work assignment. Does he password protect it? Yes, but I know the password. He made me memorize it in case something happened to him. He said we'd need access to everything after... She couldn't finish the sentence. I stood up. I'm going home. I'm going to his office, and I'm going to find that folder. What if he's there? He's not. He has that conference in Seattle today, remember? He won't be back until late tonight. David had mentioned it last week. He'd be gone all day meeting with clients. It was perfect timing. I found the insurance policy paperwork hidden in David's home office. It took me less than 20 minutes. The folder labeled Project R was exactly where Emma said it would be. Inside were dozens of documents. The insurance policy, research on different types of accidents and how to stage them, a timeline of events for tomorrow night, notes on my routine, my schedule, my habits. He'd been studying me like I was a problem to solve, and he'd found his solution. But there was something else in the folder, something that made my blood run cold. Emma revealed David had asked her to put something in my food tomorrow. She told me this over the phone while I was still in David's office, copying files to a USB drive. There's a bottle. He gave it to me 2 weeks ago. He said it was tasteless and odorless. He told me to put it in your dinner tomorrow night. Not enough to kill you immediately, just enough to make you drowsy. Then he was going to stage an accident while you were unconscious. What kind of accident? Emma's voice broke. A fall, down the stairs. He said it had to look like you hit your head. That drowning or a car accident would be too suspicious. My legs gave out. I sat down hard in David's desk chair. He'd planned to poison me, then throw me down the stairs. And he'd made my own sister his accomplice. Where's the bottle now? In my bathroom, top drawer. I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. I kept thinking I should show it to someone, but who would believe me? I was in too deep. Bring it to my house, wear gloves, don't touch it directly, we're going to photograph it and get it tested. We photographed the small bottle of poison she'd been given. Emma arrived an hour later with the bottle in a plastic bag. We set up my phone to record from multiple angles while we documented everything. The bottle itself was small, clear, with no label, but it was enough. Coupled with the text messages where David discussed the poison, it was proof of attempted murder. I called my lawyer. Then I called a detective I knew from the hospital, someone who'd worked cases involving domestic violence. I told him I needed to file a report but wanted advice first. He agreed to come by tomorrow morning, unofficially, to look at what I had. Why wait until tomorrow? Emma asked. Why not go to the police right now? Because I want David to think everything is going according to plan. I want him to feel safe, confident, certain that he's going to get away with this. And then I want to watch his face when he realizes he's lost everything. Emma looked at me with something like fear in her eyes. Rachel, what are you planning? Justice, I said. I'm planning justice. The confrontation set up. That night, I barely slept. David came home from Seattle around midnight, and I pretended to be asleep. He kissed my forehead before getting into bed, and it took everything in me not to flinch away. This man, this person I'd shared a bed with for 8 years, had kissed me goodnight countless times before. But tonight, his lips felt like ice on my skin. He was going to kill me tomorrow. And he could still kiss me like he loved me. The next morning, I woke up and decided to let David think everything was going according to plan. I made coffee, I made breakfast. I smiled and asked about his conference. I played the role of the perfect, trusting wife one last time. You seem happy, David said, studying me over his coffee cup. I am happy, I lied. Why wouldn't I be? He smiled. No reason, I'm glad. After he left for work, Emma came over. The detective came an hour later. Detective Martinez was in his 50s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. I'd worked with him on several cases where children at the hospital had been abused. He trusted me, and I trusted him. Show me everything, he said. We did. The messages, the recordings, the insurance policy, the bottle of poison, the folder on David's computer. Martinez's face grew darker with each piece of evidence. This is extensive, he said finally. Your husband is either very smart or very stupid. Smart enough to plan all this, stupid enough to leave a trail. Can you arrest him? I asked. Not yet. What we have here is conspiracy and intent, but no actual crime has been committed. Yet. He looked at me seriously. Mrs. Morrison, I think you should leave. Go somewhere safe. Let us handle this. No. No? I want to be here when it happens. I want to face him. I want him to know that I know. Emma agreed to text him that she was ready for tomorrow. She sent the message while we sat at my kitchen table. Timer's almost done. I'm ready. Are you? David's response came immediately. I've been ready. This is for us, baby. Our future starts tonight. My stomach churned. But I kept my face neutral. I installed hidden cameras throughout our house to record everything. Martinez helped me set them up. Small cameras in the living room, the kitchen, the dining room, the hallway. Anywhere David might say something incriminating. If this goes wrong, Martinez started. It won't. Mrs. Morrison, he's planning to kill you. We should have backup here. We contacted a detective I knew from the hospital to be on standby. Martinez agreed to wait in an unmarked car down the street with 2 uniformed officers. They'd come in the moment I gave the signal. A specific phrase I'd work into conversation. I can't believe it's almost midnight. I spent the afternoon preparing. I practiced acting normal, even though rage burned through my chest. Every time I looked at David's photos on our walls, every time I saw something he'd given me, every time I remembered a moment from our marriage, that rage grew hotter. How dare he? How dare he plan to take my life so he could collect insurance money and run off with my sister? How dare he make Emma complicit in his crime? How dare he spend years pretending to love me while plotting my death? The timer in my drawer showed 08:43:15, less than 9 hours. I was ready. The Last Supper. David came home at 6 o'clock, right on schedule. He walked through the door with a bouquet of flowers, roses, my favorite, and a smile that would have fooled me if I didn't know better. For my beautiful wife, he said, handing me the flowers. I cooked David's favorite meal and smiled across the table at him. Steak with garlic butter, roasted potatoes, green beans, his mother's recipe. I'd made it dozens of times over the years, perfecting it until he said it tasted just like home. Tonight, it tasted like ashes in my mouth. "This is amazing," David said, cutting into his steak. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion. I just wanted to do something nice for you." I took a sip of wine and watched him over the rim of my glass. "You've seemed stressed lately. I wanted to remind you how much I appreciate everything you do for us." He reached across the table and took my hand. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Rachel. I hope you know that." The lie came so easily to him. He'd probably been practicing it, perfecting the performance. I squeezed his hand and smiled. "I feel the same way about you." He kept checking his watch, watching the countdown on his own device. I pretended not to notice. Every few minutes, his eyes would flick to his wrist, checking the time, calculating how many hours were left, planning the perfect moment. At 7:30, the doorbell rang. Emma arrived as planned, pretending she was just stopping by. "Hey, I hope I'm not interrupting dinner." "Of course not," David said, standing to hug her. I watched them exchange looks, believing I was too stupid to notice. A quick glance, a brief nod. Everything was on schedule. "Actually, you're perfect timing," I said brightly. "I made way too much food. Have you eaten?" "I haven't, actually." Emma sat down at the table, and I got her a plate. The cameras recorded every guilty glance between them. We ate and talked about nothing. Emma told a funny story about a customer at the bookstore where she worked. David complained about a difficult client. I laughed at all the right moments and played my part perfectly. But inside, I was counting down, not to midnight, but to the moment when I'd finally get to stop pretending. At 9 o'clock, David suggested we watch a movie. Emma agreed enthusiastically. We moved to the living room, settling onto the couch like this was any normal Friday night. Like David wasn't planning to kill me in less than 3 hours. Like Emma hadn't agreed to help him. I excused myself to go to the bathroom. In the hallway, out of sight, I checked my phone. Martinez had texted, "In position, ready when you are." I took a deep breath and went back to the living room. The movie played, but I didn't watch it. I watched David and Emma. I saw how he'd put his hand on the couch cushion between us, fingers stretched toward Emma on the other side. I saw how she'd lean forward at the same moments he did, their movements synchronized. They'd done this before, I realized. They'd sat on this couch, in my house, while I was at work, and watched movies together. The rage that had been burning in my chest all day flared white hot. "Anyone want dessert?" I asked. David checked his watch again. "Actually, I'm pretty full, but maybe a drink?" "Great idea," Emma said too quickly. This was it. The moment we'd been building toward. The moment when David would make his move. I stood up. "I'll get us something from the kitchen." "What does everyone want?" 0 at an hour at 11:45 p.m., David suggested we have a nightcap to celebrate our anniversary. "Wait, it's not our anniversary," I said, keeping my voice light and confused. David smiled. "I know, but I was just thinking about how lucky I am. 8 years with you, Rachel. We should celebrate that, even if it's not the exact date." Emma nodded eagerly. "That's sweet. A toast to your marriage." "Our marriage, then," I agreed. "I'll make us something special." In the kitchen, I pulled out 3 wine glasses. My hands were steady. After all the fear and anger and grief of the past 3 days, I felt strangely calm. I knew exactly what I had to do. Emma followed me into the kitchen, just as we'd planned. Emma's hand shook as she prepared my drink. She pulled the small bottle from her purse, glancing toward the living room where David waited. "I can't do this," she whispered. "Yes, you can," I whispered back. "Pour it into that glass, the one on the left." She stared at me. "Rachel, do it. Trust me. For once in the past 2 years, trust me." Emma's hands trembled so badly she could barely open the bottle. She poured the clear liquid into the wine glass on the left. Just a few drops. Tasteless, odorless, deadly. I poured wine into all 3 glasses. Then, while Emma stood frozen, I switched our glasses when they weren't looking. The poisoned glass was now on the right. David's glass. "What are you doing?" Emma hissed. "Getting justice! Take these!" I handed her 2 glasses, hers and mine, both clean. Then I picked up the poisoned glass and walked back to the living room. David stood by the fireplace looking at his watch. 11:51 p.m. 9 minutes until midnight. 9 minutes until his timer ran out and his plan was supposed to be complete. "Here we are," I said cheerfully, handing him the poisoned glass. A celebration! David raised his glass to toast our future and drank the poisoned wine. He took a long sip, savoring it. Excellent choice, he said, smiling at me. Then he took another drink. Emma came in with the other glasses, her face pale as death. She sat down and didn't touch her wine. A toast, David said, raising his glass higher. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, I echoed. We drank. David finished half his glass. He checked his watch again, 11:55 p.m. I feel weird, he said suddenly. Dizzy. Maybe you drank too fast, Emma suggested weakly. No, something's wrong. David sat down hard, his glass falling from his hand and shattering on the hardwood floor. What did you? He looked at me, and I saw the moment he understood, the moment he realized what I'd done. You found out, he whispered. I found the timer, I said. I found everything. David tried to stand, but couldn't. The poison was working quickly, just like he'd told Emma it would. His eyes widened with fear, the same fear he'd planned for me to feel in my final moments. You switched the glasses. I did. Emma? He looked at my sister, betrayed. You told her? Emma was crying again. I couldn't let you kill her, David. I couldn't. I can't believe it's almost midnight, I said clearly, loudly. Within seconds, I heard car doors slamming outside. The detective and police burst through the door at exactly midnight. Martinez entered first, his gun drawn, 2 uniformed officers behind him. Portland police, nobody move! David collapsed as the poison took effect, but paramedics saved his life. They'd been waiting in the ambulance down the street, part of the plan. They rushed in with the antidote Martinez had arranged, injecting David before the poison could do permanent damage. We have to save him for trial, Martinez explained as the paramedics worked. Can't have him dying before he faces justice. David was conscious enough to understand what was happening. He looked at me from the stretcher, his face a mask of disbelief and rage. You set me up, he gasped. No, I said. You set yourself up. I just made sure you'd face the consequences, justice and ashes. The trial took 6 months. 6 months of depositions and lawyers and evidence presentation. 6 months of having my life dissected in court. 6 months of facing David across the courtroom while he claimed innocence, claimed that Emma and I had fabricated everything, claimed that he was the real victim, But the cameras had captured everything, their words, their plan, their intent. Every guilty glance between David and Emma from that final dinner, every check of his watch as he counted down to my planned murder, every lie he'd told. The prosecution played the video recordings David had made claiming I was abusive. Then they showed our joint bank account records, proving I'd never controlled the money. They called witnesses, my coworkers, our friends, our neighbors, who all testified that I'd never been anything but kind to David. They proved that everything David had said about me was a lie. Emma broke down and gave a full confession to the police. She testified against David in exchange for a reduced sentence. She told the court everything, how David had seduced her, manipulated her, convinced her that I was the villain in our marriage. She showed them the messages, the recordings, the timeline of their affair. I loved my sister, Emma said from the witness stand, tears streaming down her face. I still love her, and I will regret what I did for the rest of my life. But David made me believe that Rachel was hurting him. He was so convincing. He made me think we were saving him, not hurting her. The jury didn't buy it. Neither did I. Emma was sentenced to 5 years for conspiracy to commit murder. The judge said she could have stopped it at any time, could have come to me or the police before that final day. She'd made the choice to go along with David's plan, and she had to face the consequences. I testified against both of them, watching David's face as he realized I'd won. I walked to the witness stand with my head high. I answered every question, clearly, calmly. I told the jury about finding the timer, about Emma's confession, about the evidence we'd gathered. I told them about the poison, about David's plan to throw me down the stairs, about how he'd taken out a $2 million life insurance policy without telling me what it was really for. Did you ever consider just going to the police immediately? The defense attorney asked me, instead of setting this elaborate trap? Yes, I said honestly, but I wanted him to know that I knew. I wanted him to feel the same fear he'd planned for me to feel. and I wanted to make absolutely certain we had enough evidence to convict him. So this was about revenge? No, I said, looking directly at David. This was about justice. Revenge would have been letting him drink enough poison to kill him. Justice is making sure he spends the rest of his life in prison, thinking about what he tried to do. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. They found David guilty on all counts: conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, insurance fraud, and a dozen other charges. The judge sentenced him to 40 years in prison without the possibility of parole. They both went to prison, and I finally understood that my real family was the one I'd choose for myself. I sold the house. I couldn't live there anymore, not after everything that had happened. Every room held memories that were now tainted. The closet where I'd found the timer, the kitchen where Emma had poured poison into a wine glass, the living room where I'd watched my husband drink his own poison. I moved to a smaller apartment across town. I changed my name back to my maiden name, Rachel Cooper. I stopped being Mrs. Morrison. That woman had died the day she found the timer. At the hospital, my coworkers rallied around me. They brought me meals, sat with me during lunch breaks, let me cry when I needed to. My supervisor gave me time off to heal, to process, to figure out who I was now that my entire life had been revealed as a lie. "You're the strongest person I know," my friend Jennifer told me one day. She was another nurse, someone I'd worked with for 5 years. "What you did took incredible courage." "I don't feel strong," I admitted. I feel broken. Broken things can heal, and sometimes they heal stronger than before. She was right. Slowly, over months and then years, I did heal. Not completely. I don't think you ever completely heal from betrayal that deep. But I learned to live with it. I learned to trust again, carefully and cautiously. I learned to build a new life from the ashes of my old one. I started therapy. I joined a support group for people whose partners had tried to kill them. I was shocked to learn how common it was, how many people sat in that circle with stories like mine. We held each other up. We reminded each other that we were survivors, not victims. I made new friends, real friends, who didn't have secret agendas or hidden motives, people who cared about me for who I was, not for what they could get from me. I even started dating again, 3 years after the trial. Nothing serious, just coffee dates and casual dinners, learning to be open to the possibility of love again, even though the thought still terrified me. I visited Emma once, 2 years into her sentence. I don't know why I went, maybe for closure, maybe to see if there was anything left of my sister in the woman who'd betrayed me. She looked smaller in her prison uniform, older. The confident, strong Emma I'd grown up with was gone. In her place was someone hollow, broken by guilt and regret. "I'm sorry," she said. It was the first thing out of her mouth. "I know it doesn't mean anything, but I'm sorry, Rachel. Every single day, I'm sorry." "I know," I said, and I did. I could see it in her eyes, in the way she carried herself. Emma was drowning in remorse, but that didn't change what she'd done. "Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" she asked. I thought about it, really thought about it. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe someday, but not today, not yet, maybe not ever." Emma nodded, tears running down her face. "I understand. I want you to know that David manipulated me, but I still made choices, bad choices, terrible choices, and I have to live with that." "Yes," I agreed. "You do." I never visited her again. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Emma was my sister by blood, but she'd stopped being my sister in any way that mattered the day she chose David over me. I kept the timer, though. Not the one from David's closet. The police kept that as evidence. But I bought one just like it online. I keep it in a drawer in my apartment, and sometimes I take it out and look at it. A reminder of what I survived. A reminder of how strong I am. I set it to count up instead of down. It's been 5 years, 2 months, and 14 days since I found the original timer. 5 years since my life fell apart and I had to rebuild it from nothing. The timer shows 1,934 seconds and counting. Every second is a victory. Every second is proof that I survived when they wanted me dead. Every second is mine. I learned a lot from that nightmare. I learned that you can't always trust the people closest to you. I learned that love can be a weapon in the wrong hands. I learned that sometimes the person sleeping next to you is your greatest enemy. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I ever knew. I learned that I can face the worst betrayal imaginable and still survive. I learned that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up for you when everything falls apart. It's about who holds your hand in the dark. It's about who tells you the truth, even when it's hard. My real family now is Jennifer and the other nurses at the hospital. It's the people in my support group. It's my therapist who's helped me work through the trauma. It's Detective Martinez, who still checks in on me every few months to make sure I'm okay. They're the ones who chose me, and I chose them back. As for David and Emma, they're exactly where they belong. David will die in prison. His earliest possible release date would be when he's 86 years old. Emma will be out in 3 more years, but I've heard she's not doing well. The guilt has eaten away at her. She's in therapy, on medication for depression, struggling to imagine a life after prison where she has to face what she did. I don't wish them well. I'm not that generous, not that forgiving, but I don't wish them harm either. I simply wish them nothing. They've taken up enough space in my life, in my thoughts, in my heart. Now I focus on myself, on healing, on building a life worth living. Some nights I still wake up from nightmares. I dream about finding the timer, about reading those messages, about watching David drink the poisoned wine. I dream about Emma's face when she confessed. I dream about what would have happened if I hadn't found the timer, if I'd gone to bed that night 3 days later without knowing what they'd planned. But then I wake up. I'm alive. I'm safe. I'm free. And they're not. That's the real victory, not the prison sentences or the trial or the justice system working exactly as it should. The real victory is that I'm still here. I'm still living. I'm still finding moments of happiness and peace. I found love again last year. His name is Marcus, and he's a teacher at the elementary school near the hospital. He's kind and patient and honest. When I told him my story, all of it, holding nothing back, he held my hand and said, "Thank you for trusting me with that, and thank you for surviving it. The world is better with you in it." I cried when he said that, happy tears, for the first time in years. We're taking things slow. I'm still learning to trust, still learning to believe that not everyone has hidden motives. But Marcus is patient. He understands that some wounds take time to heal. Last week, I threw away the timer. I'd kept it for 5 years, but I realized I didn't need it anymore. I didn't need a physical reminder of what I'd survived. I carry that strength inside me now. It's part of who I am. I stood over the trash can in my kitchen, holding that timer, and I thought about everything it represented. The betrayal, the fear, the rage, the plan, the justice, the survival. And then I let it go. It felt like releasing a weight I'd been carrying for years. The past doesn't define me anymore. What David and Emma did doesn't define me. I'm not the woman who was almost murdered by her husband and sister. I'm the woman who survived. I'm the woman who fought back. I'm the woman who refused to be a victim. I'm Rachel Cooper, pediatric nurse, survivor, friend, girlfriend, and someday, maybe, wife again to someone who deserves me. I'm alive, and I'm finally, truly free. The lesson I learned from all of this isn't complicated. It's simple, really. Trust is precious, and betrayal is devastating. But survival is possible. Healing is possible. Love is possible, even after the worst betrayal imaginable. Family isn't who you're born to. Family is who earns the right to be in your life through their actions, their loyalty, their love. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from the family that hurt you and build a new one from the people who choose to love you the way you deserve to be loved. That's my story. That's how I survived betrayal and found justice. That's how I learned that even when the people closest to you want you dead, you can still choose to live. And living, really truly living, is the best revenge of all.